Sri Lanka economy is a services economy, right? And primarily, obviously, the internal consumption is going on. So in terms of, we also see post the first wave, at least 60 to 70% of the economic activity from the retail front has recovered, right? But I think the challenge remains in terms of as Sri Lanka was kind of projecting itself to become an economic hub, being a financial hub, a services hub, transportation hub. So a lot of those strategies have got impacted. Obviously, Sri Lanka, in terms of geolocation, is in a strategic location in the Indian Ocean, and to leverage that, obviously the economic activity of the world has to go on, and in that sense, we are greatly impacted. But I think life goes on from a domestic economic point of view. But obviously, we are impacted in terms of the global economy, and especially in terms of tourism, shipping, and the rest of it.
I can understand. The challenges are plenty, and especially from a Sri Lankan point of view, the tourism is a big hit. And so is the various aspects of supply chain and also health issues. If I may say that there is a planned execution required to reopen economies safely while minimizing resurgence of the virus on one side. How do you think technology can play or is playing a vital role at this crucial juncture? Do tech leaders have a role to play in this recovery and the resilience phase?
Yeah, I think definitely I think the new normal, so to speak, or the next normal, as people love to call it, has challenges, and obviously, I think it's an opportunity as well. Why do I say that? Because we cannot expect economic to revive the way it has been going forward, right? So it's important for us to reimagine all of these in the context of what has happened, because no one foresaw this kind of a pandemic, right? And no one in their wildest dreams thought a virus could cause such a havoc in the global arena, right? So I think one has to go back to the drawing board in terms of understanding the nuances of the economy and how, in order to revive that, what kind of safety measures have to come in. I think that's important, right? Because today I think everyone is in panic mode in terms of, obviously, I think they always say when you're pushed to the corner, your defense mechanism fires up, right? So today every human being is defensive, right? It's in terms of my health first, right? So how do you really give them the comfort that you can get back to life pre-COVID, right? So the challenge obviously is one of giving that person the confidence that the systems are working, that he has the information which is required for him, and he could consume things where he or she feels comfortable with, and he or she could continue to work from where he or she feels comfortable working from. So I think a lot of the nuances, if you then start looking at, I think it's like a classic case of a Lego toy, right? So you got to break everything down to the minuscule blocks and then rebuild that whole new future in terms of looking at the ground rules, which are going to be totally different to what we got used to, right? So today, I think in your wildest imagination, did you think you will have a DynamicCIO forum virtually, right? If it was the old normal, we would have jumped on the plane, congregated in a hotel, right? That's the damn thing, right? No one thinks, hey, how can you do a kind of this kind of forum virtually? Right? It wasn't even thought of. Like if you look at like the Teams and all these technologies were there for maybe more than 7-8 years, but we really didn't put it to use because obviously we had got used to a comfort zone which was blinding us to in terms of the possibilities. So today, I think this pandemic has really pushed us to look at the possibilities in its merits, where it deserves in terms of adoption of technology, in terms of the new normal, right? I think jokingly, a lot of people say that COVID is the new chief digital officer. I would reluctantly agree because it has really pushed people to accept new ways of doing things, right? So otherwise, you imagine like we would spend, especially in India and Sri Lanka, about 3 to 4 hours ferrying ourselves to the workplace in a vehicle in traffic, right? And today we feel that's not required. We don't need the real estate space which is required to house everyone, give everyone a workspace and a seat, right? And whether that productivity, that investment, whether it has ROI into this context, right? So I think given all of these, I think today, if you really simply rewind and rethink, you will then come to question the basic assumptions based on which we've taken decisions, run the economy, run our businesses, run our lives, right? So today, I would think we've been forced to revalidate our assumptions, rethink what we've been doing, whether it is a value adding step or is it something that we could have done in a better way, right? And in that light, you're also seeing there are a lot of technologies which are really not deployed to the fullest potential, right? That is what people have woken up to. Because if you take, I don't know, for John Kids per se, we kind of seamlessly transition to a work from home. All the technologies and the bells and whistles were there. But unfortunately, it was never put to the use of that scale because that need wasn't there, right? So I definitely feel technology has in a short answer to your question, technology definitely has a role in terms of redefining the new normal, and it is going to be the core platform which is going to drive that new normal. And it is also going to give people possibilities in terms of engaging their ecosystems. And if you take myself, now say I would have an ecosystem in terms of my family, my workspace, my home, my extended thing in terms of shopping, everything, right? So today, I tend to think, or I tend to agree that 60% of my entire ecosystem that I touch, I could touch it from being at home. And that it was possible even before. But we never pause to think, why aren't we doing this? So today, I think we've been really pushed to relook at, rethink, revalidate our assumptions, our thought process, and what we do, right? Which is what I think pandemic has done to us, though it's at a heavy price. But if not for it, I don't think we would have been pushed to this.
Exactly. It's a very fascinating answer. You gave me a long answer, but actually it gave a lot of new discoveries in it. So, what according to you are those few steps towards reimagining a more resilient future? Do you think that the emerging and future digital technologies will play a decisive role as we go on to reimagine this future?
Yeah, I think definitely, because I think the fundamental aspect that which is going to fuel this whole future is going to be data, right? Because I think today, if you take me for example, right? So I would have a tag Ramesh Shanmuganathan, right? I might have different personas. I am a father. I could be a CIO. I could be a student somewhere learning something. I could be a shopper. I could be a driver driving the vehicle. So based on the different personas or the roles that I play, my information needs are different, right? So if the information I need to live my life, to execute what I do, is made available to me when I want, where I want, how I want it, then I, as a human being, can be very effective in discharging my roles and responsibilities. right? So today the question is, why isn't that made possible? It's not that technology is not available. It is not that it's not possible. It is because of the strictures and policies, rules and regulations that you would have as a country, as a company, as a company, or as a store that you sell based on. Those strictures are different, right? So today, say uh, my company will say, hey, you got to really come into my office, log into my device, which I give you, to access the applications that you have to use, right? Same way, store could say, if you want to shop with me, you got to come in physically, or you can get onto my website, but there could be only limited functionality. But even if you shop, you might have to come and pick this up from the store. Or if you want to get delivered, okay, you got to pay extra price, right? So the whole question is also in terms of driving that whole evolution. If you're reimagining the possibilities, you got to really look at what is that points of friction that you have today that you can take off, right? So if you look at the customer journey map, you can definitely identify a lot of points of frictions where you could bring upon technology to take those points of frictions, eliminate those points of frictions, and with the use of an application of data.
So if I can interject here a little bit. So shall we assume safely that we were really not up to the mark in terms of adoption of those technologies which were really available even before pandemic, and we were waiting for an occasion like this to happen?
Yeah, I would agree. That's why I said it's a for the people in the tech space, it's a blessing in disguise, but it came with a heavy price, right? Because a lot of the technology was there, but it was never the mainstream, right? To make an impact. So I think if you remember, even last time's CIO forum, we spoke of why digital is a must and why a data-driven organization is not an option anymore, right? But today, that has kind of been shoved down people's throats, saying, "Hey, you don't have an option. You got to do this." Right. Today, if you look at contact tracing, you look at any citizen who's coming to a country, people are worried in terms of, hey, where the hell have this guy been? Right? Who will he be in touch with tomorrow? Right? So even starting from simple things like contact tracing is about data. Right? About management of health information is about data. Giving you confidence when you walk into a store, when you walk into an office, when you walk into an airport, that you are in an environment which is safe. It's about data. Right? Stitching the data ecosystem together to give you that confidence.
So true. Data has been central, whether COVID or no COVID. Data has been very central to any organization's business strategy, business excellence. However, if I may ask you, because we have all seen, organizations in different locations, different geographies, we have seen organizations either reacting to the situation or recovering from the shock that they've had, creating more innovation, creating more excellence during these times. So, if we talk specifically about the Sri Lankan geography, how do you find the industry coping up? In real sense, what's the real world scenario there?
So a lot of companies are challenged because the whole thing is about, you cannot go from zero to where you want to overnight, right? Because ultimately these kind of transformation has to be a journey, right? So that is where a lot of the companies are struggling, because they were not ready in terms of facing this kind of a challenge, right? So imagine if you had all your servers in your data center, all your applications in your data center, right? You did not have an open cloud strategy or a hybrid cloud strategy. You did not have a federated identity management. You did not think of, how will I kind of ensure uh, liberating access to beyond my employees and my organization, right? So today, and whilst all of this was happening, you also saw a huge spike in ransomware attack and cyber crimes, right? Because people were waiting for this to happen, because obviously for them, this was the opportunity that they were waiting for, right? So it is not about just transforming your organization to be able to operate from anywhere, but the primary underlying function is to how do you make it more secure and a resilient way of doing business, right? Because obviously when you shrink your core, you feel safe, right? Say you can tell, okay, hey, anyone who wants to transact has to physically come into the location, I'm safe, right? But how many, if people are unable to, then you got to then expand your core, right? Either physically or digitally, right? So the easiest option is digital. So digitally, when you expand the core to touch your constituents in terms of customers, suppliers, employees, then you have other challenges that you've got to conquer with, right? So that's not a strategy any organization could adapt overnight if they were not prepared. So that is where a lot of people actually got caught with their pants down when the pandemic hit them, right? So very few organizations were able to navigate through that because they were ready.
No, I completely agree with you, and this is a moot point which has been discussed in almost all our deliberations that we are having with the CIOs, and you rightly said. So, a few catchphrases that I caught from your last answer was open cloud strategy, resilience through your access management, and so on. So, do you think that after this situation has emerged and people have faced the fire, they have been caught, as you said, quote unquote, pants down. Do you think, or rather, what areas do you think will have the maximum focus now from a CIO's point of view to create resiliency, to create business continuity?
So I think one of the things that I am seeing a lot more kind of traction is in terms of the zero trust approach, right? The zero trust architecture in terms of how you would approach technology or data. The second thing is arising from the zero trust is that every constituent must have a digital ID, right? I think that is where I think a couple of the countries, I know India is in a much better place now with Aadhaar, but in Sri Lanka we are struggling with that, where we don't have a digital ID yet, right? So digital ID actually then really gets the ball rolling in terms of being able to then put a zero trust infrastructure of being able to identify a user in terms of an authenticated mechanism, a legal mechanism which relates to your laws of the land, right? Otherwise, you then compensate for the lack of the digital identity with your mobile number, your email, your open ID, or your Active Directory ID in an organization sense. So you actually then have multiple IDs. But how do you just then converge all of that into a single identity, right? How can I say the person Ramesh Shanmuganathan or Ramesh at keys.com or Ramesh at Ramesh24.com or Ramesh Shanmuganathan on Facebook is the same person?
Right.
How do you make sure that it's a non-repudiable identity that I could trust, right? So that's the biggest challenge today we would have in terms of identifying a person. The second thing would be as you then evolve as an organization, you are saying then, okay, what has pandemic pushed me to do? Today, my organization, which was limited to few physical locations, today is all over the place. Why? Because my constituents, my employees are now wanting work from home from every town in Sri Lanka, right? And similarly, when that happens, and these employees have to interact with various stakeholders, suppliers, other customers. Now, how do I enable all of this? So then it really becomes anywhere to anywhere connectivity. So I can't shrink that into a box. So then, how can I then enable access to all of these people when I have servers sitting in my data center and I need VPNs and I need to open my firewalls or drill holes into my firewall to give access? So that's where the thing about your hybrid cloud strategy or open data comes into play, because then you are enabling that in terms of whatever the kind of the digital natives are doing today, like the Ubers, the Airbnbs of the world, right? So you were talking. I know the theme is about hyper growth, hyper digital. So one thing that we could learn from today's digital native organizations is exactly that, right? So you can't assume where is your next customer going to come from, where is your next employee going to come from, or where's your next supply going to come from. So because your assumptions are, hey, my customer is going to be in Sri Lanka, my employee is going to be in Sri Lanka, my supplier is going to be in Sri Lanka, we think we can stitch these together and put that into a black box, right? So the moment you think the entire world is my space or business, your choices that you make in terms of technology is totally different. That will be cloud, that will be zero trust architecture, that will be digital identity, right? The digital supply chain. So everything then you're talking about is building that value ecosystem that you would want to avail in terms of fulfilling something, right? So I think last time when I spoke, I did emphasize on this. Today, linear value chains are perishing. You don't have a value chain which is nailed down. You have value ecosystem which is assembled for that timing to fulfill an obligation, right? So today, say I pick my mobile phone, I log into Amazon, I order something, pay through PayPal, get it delivered through DHL. I am assembling that entire value ecosystem myself. DHL doesn't determine that entire thing, Amazon doesn't determine the entire thing, PayPal doesn't determine the entire thing. So that's the power of tech today, right? And if we wake up to that opportunity, I think reimagining the future is not going to be difficult, but it's challenging, because you have to, like as I said, the Lego box, you got to break it down into the Lego pieces and start rebuilding. And that is what is daunting for most people.
Yeah, you have to really break it down and start rebuilding. You are right. So I really admire that visionary approach that you have just suggested, um, because it's not the customers, the suppliers, and the ecosystem is no more in the box. It is actually scattered all over. So one final question, which is also very very important, is that while there could be a wishful thinking of doing a lot of things, there is also a caution or restraint of budgetary allocations.
Yes.
Most of the companies are, if not struggling, but are very prudent in terms of their spend, including IT. So, what could be the judicious path that the CIOs should look at without splurging money and also utilizing what they already have in their systems?
So the good point to start, I've always said, is the customer, right? Because ultimately all of us exist in terms of fulfilling a promise for our customers. So I think it might be a good place to start and relook at in terms of, if we were to scale and if we were to look at hyper growth, right? What are the few friction points that we would really want to address? Is it in terms of uh, custom access? Is it in terms of supply chain? Is it in terms of your core value adding function in terms of product or service, right? And then to relook at what is that, if you're actually across the value chain, what is your USP? Is it stretching yourself across the value chain, or just focusing on one or two elements and looking at hyper growth across those? Let's say, for example, right? So you might be in a manufacturing business. So, but you're in a manufacturing business, you might be running your warehouse, you might be running your distribution, everything, right? But you might think, hey, I am better off just focusing on manufacturing and partner with someone for distribution and warehousing, because I can definitely build scale here, and this is what I'm good at, right? And then you're also able to assign and probably really modernize that in terms of reimagining what my manufacturing 4.0 should look like in just building hypergrowth, concentrating my assets in one part of the value chain rather than stretching it across the value chain. Right. So today I would think more and more people are getting pushed in terms of re-looking at what is that few things that I'm good at that I would want to concentrate my assets and resources, and then build an ecosystem to deliver the rest. Right. And then your choices becomes much more easier and very focused. And then I feel that there lies your answer in terms of hypergrowth and hyperdigital. And to get the hypergrowth in terms of your focused area, what are the digital or the technologies you need to apply to get there?
Thank you very much, Ramesh. I think it was a brilliant conversation with you as ever.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Ramesh, and good seeing you again. And thank you, Rahul. And with that, we come to our big moment, that part of Sri Lanka Digital Dialogues where we recognize and felicitate leaders of our industry who have chosen to break the status quo and beat a new path for thinking and working.